I'm 21 and a female. I usually try not to go to the laundromat at night, but with it getting dark so early, that's basically impossible. That was the situation tonight. I got there and I was alone except for one guy smoking outside and a couple employees cleaning stuff. Usually I sit in my car and wait, but it was super cold, so that wasn't really an option. I brought along some homework and sat on one of the chairs. The chairs are arranged in group of twos, so I put my backpack on the seat next to me. I could see this guy staring at me through the window. There were still employees around though, so I wasn't too worried. A while later, he came in and walked around for a while before deciding to approach me. He told me I was being rude by taking up two chairs because what if I want to sit there? I basically told him that there were other chairs and I could move to a different seat if there was something special about these ones. He walked off and kept walking in circles around the building. A while later, the employees left. He came up to me again and pointed to my sweatshirt pocket and said, "You can keep that in your car, you know. You don't need it here." What was in my pocket? Pepper spray. He was telling me to get rid of my pepper spray. I told him I didn't feel like it and would be keeping it. At this point, I was pretty eager to just get the fuck out and might have just got into my car and pulled some laps around the block if not for the fact that the dryers don't lock and I was paranoid about him looking through my stuff. Luckily, he decided to smoke again and I escaped while he was gone. I still don't know this man's name. I don't know what he wanted. All I know is if I hadn't trusted my gut that night, I might not be here talking about it. This happened 3 years ago on a 2-lane road that cuts through about 20 miles of nothing. No houses, no streetlights, just tall grass and the occasional billboard. I've driven this route 100 times before, usually after late shifts. I hated it, but it was the fastest way home. That night, around 1 a.m., I noticed a pair of headlights in my rearview mirror. No big deal at first. Cars use this road all the time. But this one came up behind me fast, too fast, then hovered inches away from my bumper like he was trying to push me. I tapped my brakes lightly, just enough to flash the lights, a warning to back off, but he didn't. Instead, the car swerved once to the left, once to the right, almost like it was deciding which side to ram me from. That's when every hair on my body stood up. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. I sped up. He sped up. I slowed down. He slowed down. He was matching me exactly. For the first time, I realized I couldn't see in his car. His headlights were so blindly bright that his windshield looked like a black void. Whoever he was, he had the advantage. He could see me, but I couldn't see any of him. About 10 minutes down the road, a small turnout, a gravel shoulder big enough for one car. I thought maybe I should pull over, let him pass, but something in my stomach twisted so hard, it felt like a physical warning. Do not stop. The car behind me suddenly accelerated and pulled up beside me. We were side by side on a narrow 2-lane road with no guardrails. I kept my eyes forward, gripping the wheel so hard my fingers went numb. The other driver drifted closer and closer, practically nudging me towards a ditch. For a split second, I glanced over. The driver was leaning across the passenger seat, staring straight at me. Not angry, not confused, just staring, like he was waiting to see what I would do. He had this sort of crooked smile, but it was calm. I floored it. I had an old, crappy car, but it gave me just enough to pull ahead. He fell back, then surged after me again. It felt like it went on forever. Me scanning the road for turnoffs, him tailgating me like a predator that wasn't in a hurry, like he was enjoying it. Finally, I saw a sign, and I've never been so happy to see it in my life. The Old Creek gas station 1 mile ahead. I didn't know if it was open, didn't care. Light meant witnesses, cameras, maybe people. I cut into the turn lane hard, tires screeching. He tried to follow, but I think he misjudged the angle. His car fishtailed on the gravel, which gave me a few precious seconds. I flew towards the gas station, praying to see anyone but darkness. To my relief, the gas station was lit, and there was a pickup parked by the front door. A man in a reflective vest stood beside it, drinking from a thermos. I don't think I've ever been so relieved to see a stranger in my life. I pulled up fast, jumped out, and yelled something. I don't even remember what. The man in the vest looked confused, then concerned, and walked towards me. When I turned to point at the road, there was nothing. No headlights, no engine noise. The guy stayed with me for about 15 minutes, long enough for my hands to stop shaking. He offered to follow me home, but I told him I'd be fine. Somehow, with another human nearby, the whole thing felt distant, like maybe I imagined it. But as I walked back to my car, I noticed something. There were fresh scratches across my bumper. I hadn't even heard when it happened. I reported it. Of course, nothing came of it. They asked me if I remembered the make or model of the car. I didn't. Just the headlights. Just the face. Every now and then, when I'm driving at night, I check the rearview mirror and see headlights, and just for a split second, it all comes back to my mind. Though I carry mace now. This happened to me in 2021. There's a bar in a small Iowa town that I absolutely adore. All the staff knew me well, and I was a frequent regular, even if I was there just to chill. I was out late one night. Tap water is bad, so I refused to drink it. If I wasn't gonna drink it, I refused to give it to my cat. There's a water fountain at the park where the water was much more drinkable, so I saved some core water bottles from when I was buying normal water from the gas station. I had to pass by the bar to get there. It was a Friday night and the bar was bumping. I just had to go in. There were some men who were basically there all the time. They were there that night. After the bar closed, I made my way to the park to collect water. They had left before I did. The park was across the street and a block down to the right. The three of them were sitting there and smoking, super drunk. They drink beer like it's water. They were sitting on some stairs at the entrance of a business directly across the street. I went past them and they asked, "Who are you? Are you new to town?" I didn't think much of it. It's a super small Iowa town. Everyone knows everyone. I told them yes, I was in fact new in town. Then they started asking me personal questions, and I lied to them about everything, mainly about I had a partner, because they found me attractive. In the middle of the conversation, there was a screaming cat somewhere. It was loud. I ended the convo and told them I really needed to go and get home to my cat. So I went into the park to get the water. It was pushing 4 a.m. at this point. It was dark. The streetlights were soft, warm orange, so there was little light pollution. You can barely see anything. While I was getting water, I looked across the street and saw one of the men duck behind a parked car, like they were trying to go inside of it. The car never made any noise or flash to indicate someone entered. I noted this, but didn't think too much of it. They were drunk, probably being weird. I left the park, and suddenly another one of the guys was sitting alone closer to me from the other two guys, sitting on a different set of stairs. He tried to make conversation again, but I kept walking. I again noted this, but still didn't think much of it. But I didn't know where the third man was. Suddenly, the night shift cop I was acquaintances with pulled up to me and asked if I was screaming for help and if the men were bothering me. I wasn't putting two and two together. I told him no. Several people called in that someone was screaming, but it was just a cat. There were cops everywhere. He carried on and said to call him if I needed anything. I kept walking home. I crossed the street and pretty much slipped straight into pitch darkness once I was back onto the residential area. Then I heard someone behind me go, "Psst." I turned around. The same guy by the car did the same exact thing before. There was a third guy on the other side of the street. I walked faster. Then I heard some clicking like they were calling a dog. It was the car guy. Then I see the other man in the middle of the road going, "Psst, psst." They started walking faster towards me. It finally clicked. I bolted and took a different route, hiding in the dark and waiting for a while before running home. I never saw them again after that, which was abnormal. I also asked the bartender if they had ever acted like that before. She said no. I don't know why they never came back to the bar. Maybe they did after I moved again or something. I'm a 21-year-old male. Back in March this year, I attended this non-academic event on campus with my friends. Most of the attendees were humanities and art students. So my friends and I stood out a bit because we're the only computer science majors there. After the event, we went down to the library, a few floors below, to work on our coding assignments. While I was working, I noticed someone staring at me from about 25 feet away. I recognized him from the event, an art student, judging by his college ID lanyard. At first, I didn't think much of it, but his eyes were locked on me the entire time, only looking away when I glanced back. This went on for the full hour we were in the library. The second encounter happened during class. He kept peeking through the classroom door as he walked by. At first, I tried to ignore it, but he passed the door multiple times, enough to distract me from the lecture. What made it even stranger is art students usually have their classes in a different building, nowhere near the engineering and computer studies building where my class was held, so it didn't make sense for him to be there. I thought that would be the end of it, but the third encounter happened after my gym class. I went to the restroom to change, and I noticed he was walking behind me in the hallway. I ignored it and went into a cubicle. While I was changing, I realized my sweaty shirt, which hung on the cubicle door, had disappeared. Turns out the creep had followed me, taken my shirt, sniffed it, and dropped it on the floor when he bolted out the moment I tried to confront him. That was my breaking point. I decided to file a complaint with the university's disciplinary office, but when I went there the following week, I was told that he had been expelled the day before. Apparently, I wasn't his only victim. He had been kicked out for sexually assaulting another male student from a different college. "5 years ago, I was working the night shift at a 24-hour diner off a small highway. Anyone who's worked night shifts knows the rhythm. Dead quiet after midnight, regulars who come in and keep to themselves, and long stretches where there's absolutely no one. Around 2 a.m., a guy walked in wearing a stained gray hoodie up, head down, no eye contact. Nothing that would scream danger itself, just the kind of person you get on that shift. But something about him set off every alarm in my body instantly. No fear exactly, more like a warning. He didn't sit, didn't look around, just looked where the bathroom was and disappeared down the hallway. Though I didn't hear the door open or close, and that struck me as odd. A couple minutes went by, then a few more. Long enough that the cook, Louise, leaned out of the kitchen and asked if everything was okay. Before I could answer, the guy reappeared, but his entire demeanor had changed. The tired shuffle was gone. His posture was rigid, focused. His left hand was buried deep into his pocket like he was holding something. He didn't have to say anything for me to understand what was happening. The tone alone was enough. He was robbing us. He made me put my phone on the counter. Luis did the same. The guy stayed calm the whole time, which honestly made it worse. He didn't sound angry or frantic, just kind of prepared. He took me to the dry storage room. This part still catches at my throat when I think about it. I kept waiting for him to lock the door behind us, but he didn't. Instead, he stood by listening, pacing occasionally, checking his watch like he was waiting for something on a schedule. I remember studying him, his shoes, his breath, the way he touched his front pocket of the hoodie. At one point, he pulled out a folded paper. I saw it for only a split second before he tucked it away, but the handwriting was frantic, like someone wrote it quickly or in a panic. He wasn't on drugs. People would like to assume that, but he was way too controlled and too deliberate. He truly seemed like he was following a plan. Being in the storage room with him felt unreal. Not dramatic or cinematic, just horribly quiet. I remember thinking how weird it was that a hostage situation could feel so mundane. After a while, all I could focus on was the sound of the freezer and his footsteps on the concrete floor. About 40 minutes in, he froze, tilted his head like he heard something outside that I couldn't. He opened the door a crack and listened. Moments later, a pickup rumbled into the lot. I believe a regular pickup. The sound triggered something in the guy. His breathing sped up for the first time. Not panic, just shifting gears. He made me stay put and moved me out of sight. I couldn't see what happened, just heard the diner door open and a man call out, then a thud, then nothing for a few seconds. When the guy came back into view through the storage doorway, he had a bag he didn't have before. He untied Lewis. I never saw him tie him up, and took the money from the register. Everything happened so fast, like he rehearsed it. Before he fully left, he paused at the front window and stared at them for a second, like he was checking his reflection or maybe making sure no one else was pulling up. Then he was just gone. No dramatic run, no yelling, just slipped out into the parking lot. The whole ordeal lasted a little bit over an hour, but it felt both shorter and longer at the same time. The police showed up quick. They searched the area, pulled footage from the nearby business cameras, which weren't many, a gas station and a fast food restaurant. No car description, no prints, nothing on the cameras except for headlights coming and going. In the police report, I was marked as detained but unharmed. That struck me for years. I was there, but not really. I existed in that diner, but not safely. For the next few months, I couldn't walk into a room without checking every corner first. I luckily was able to avoid night shifts completely. The job never felt the same, and I eventually quit. The thing that gets me, even 5 years later, isn't the threat of fear. It's that the guy wasn't there for me or Lewis. We were inconveniences, obstacles he had to manage through to get whatever he came for. The list he carried, I still think about it. What else was on it? And if it had anything to do with the diner at all. This was fall of last year. It was a cool September day, and I had rushed out the door with my little 2-year-old crying in my arms about not wanting to wear shoes, and locked us out of the house. My fiance was on a job close to about 45 minutes away, and my landlord was out of town. Great. I called my fiance, and he said that he would bring me the keys soon. So my son and I tried to make the best of it and started to play. We live at the end of a street, not a dead end, but right near a stop sign. A man with a backpack started to walk down the road. Nothing new. We lived in a rundown part of town. He walked up the road, and then a little bit while later he comes back. Then he started this strange pattern, making an L-shaped loop, walking down my street, past the stop sign, turning, and doing it again. By the third time, he was staring at me with this slight smirk. yet he does it again, making an L. This gut feeling started to sink. I was boxed in, and I was prepared to toss my kid over the back fence. I called my neighbor to have her husband come outside because I was getting nervous. The man was at the stop sign and was turning right to do his L. At this time, the man stopped behind a tree, directly blocking him from my line of sight. I walked to where I could see him, and he starts pulling something out of his backpack. My neighbor steps outside at this time also. We make eye contact, and the man steps back out from behind the tree with a hatchet in his hand. He locks eyes with my neighbor, looks back at my son and I, and then the man and I both start to run. I run across the road to my neighbor, pretty much throwing my son into my neighbor's arms. The man didn't follow me up the stairs, but he crossed the street too, hatchet raised, only about 4 feet from me as I made it across. He was pacing like he was trying to work up the nerve. I could feel the energy from him just grow darker. Scariest shit in my life. So yeah, Mr. Hatchet Man, let's not meet again. When I was around 12, I had this group of friends. Ted, male 11, Kelly, 10 years old female, and Meg, 12 years old female. We all hung out together at Ted and Kelly's house. They were siblings and Ted was sort of forced to hang out with us. My sister sometimes came along, 9 years old. She was friends with Kelly and they tended to follow me everywhere. During the day, me and Ted were fighting over this BB gun when it went off and hit my sister in the back. She was crying and I made her promise never to tell my mom or dad. She sat out the rest of the day while I took the rest of the group to a spot I had found with my other friend, Allie. We used to smoke cigarettes there when I didn't go to school, but the rest of my friends hated her, so they never tagged along. The spot was just an area with 2 fences with houses on both sides. There was many trees and looked like a mini forest to us. Me and Allie had decorated it with a broken down table and some chairs we found on the street. There was an opening in the middle where I had brought them, and the stuff from the street made it feel more homey. We weren't even there for 10 minutes before this lady came out of her house. At first, we assumed she was a man because she had her shirt off, and we all saw her bare back. But when she turned around, we all saw her tatas. We all stayed silent till Meg stepped on a twig and blew our cover. The lady started screaming nonsense about how we were in her yard, which wasn't true because we were behind the fence. This scared us enough to figure we should just go to Ted and Kelly's, so we left the spot and started walking to their house. Their house was just down the long fence that blocked the guy on the other side's lawn. It was a pretty long fence, and we'd take a second to get past it. But then we heard the sound of a gunshot and turned around. The lady had grabbed a gun and shot somewhere random. She looked mad, crazed eyes, like your neighborhood crackhead. The sound of the gun made my ears ring, and everyone started to run. More shots continued to be fired, but the way she was holding the gun was wrong, and her aim was so bad she could have been trying to catch a bird. Because the fence was so long, it felt like an eternity while we were running to hide at Ted and Kelly's house. That 1 minute of my life felt longer than anything I've ever felt before. Nobody was shot, and nobody said a word as I yanked my now scared sister out of the lawn chair and rushed everyone inside. Their mother had heard the gunshots and came to us before calling the police. The police came and talked to both me and my friends. They arrested her for child endangerment. Now that I'm older and thinking back on it, she definitely was on something super strong. It's been years since that day, and every time I hear gunshots, I end up panicking. So crazy drug lady, let's not meet.